This conference will now be recorded.
Good afternoon, Transportation Committee. It's so great to see everyone for our very first Tarrant County Unity Council Transportation Committee meeting. My name is Tanisha Stanford, and I'm a health equity specialist here with Tarrant County Public Health, and I am over the communication and education sector, but I've also been providing some backup support for transportation. And I know some of you might be looking for Nikos, but he did transition into a new role. So I will be presenting this information to you all today, along with the help of Barbara Young. And she will be taking over the Transportation Committee moving forward after today's meeting, okay? We'll give it just a little second as people continue to trickle in. Just a small second, though, because it is 1:32. I'm gonna move on. They can catch up once we get in. Okay. I'm sorry. Okay, so if you all could turn on your cameras, this meeting, these meetings are definitely discussion based. So we definitely want to see everyone's faces as we share as you all share your expertise and insight. So definitely, please, if you are able to, please turn on your cameras. Okay. And at this time, I would like for everyone to go ahead and do a brief introduction. So please provide your name, your organization, and what you're hoping to contribute, learn, or gain from our transportation meeting. Okay, somebody take it away.
I can go. I'm Matt Jacobs. I'm with Catholic Charities Fort Worth Transportation, and we subcontract with Trinity Metro to cover a lot of the areas outside of Fort Worth proper and Arlington. So we do Hercules, Bedford, Grapevine, Azle, Mansfield, all over the county, the outlying cities. And so I'm just glad to be on the council and see what we can do to help serve the community.
Absolutely. Thank you, Matt. Would anyone else like to share?
I'll go. My name is Kylie Brooks. I'm one of the other health equity specialists. I'm over the Housing Committee and the Economic Development Committee, and I'm here today because housing and transportation are extremely and intrinsically connected. So I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys have to offer since you deal with transportation on a daily basis.
I guess I just joined the call. My name's Victor Vandegrift. Are we introducing ourselves? I apologize.
Yes, Victor, please introduce yourself, your organization, and let us know, what you're looking to gain or contribute with this transportation committee.
All right. Well, again, my name is Victor Vandegrift, and I am the executive director of the Tarrant Regional Transportation Coalition, which consists of 6 counties, approximately 50 cities, and another close to 24 private sector companies mixed on our board, as well as a blend of public and private sector members. Extremely interested in anything that touches the world of transportation, and I certainly believe that some of the concepts that you talk about in the public health sector do that. I also know that the Regional Transportation Council and the North Texas Council of Governments Transportation Department staff also agree with that. So as I learn of what you're doing and listen, mostly, at least in the beginning, hopefully we can find some ways that maybe the knowledge we have and can bring will be helpful.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you, Victor, for sharing.
I did want to note that my schedule says I can only be on the call until approximately 2 o'clock, so I apologize for dropping earlier, but I had a previously arranged call.
Oh, no, that's absolutely okay. We'll definitely send a follow-up email with all the slides and further information and contact information if you have any questions.
Okay.
Thank you. All right. Tanya, would you like to introduce yourself? I'm sorry, Rachel. Go ahead.
Sorry, I wasn't quick enough. Hi, everyone. My name is Rachel Jenkins. I'm with the North Central Texas Council of Governments. I personally serve on our transit management planning team. For the region, my colleague Kate is here. I think she's having trouble connecting to audio, so I'll just mention that she's here as well. She works also in transportation, but more on our environmental justice side. So we're both here representing COG today, and hopefully she can get connected so she can introduce herself. But as far as contributions, I'm just hoping to contribute from my perspective, working in public transportation throughout the region, and gain the perspectives of everybody else here, and learn. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Rachel, for sharing. And hi, Kate. If you're not able to connect, hopefully you can hear us and take away some things here. And like I say, if you have any questions or anything later, please don't hesitate to reach out.
Okay, my name is Barbara Young. I'm a public health equity specialist here. I'm going to be taking over the transportation committee, and I'm hoping to get input from everyone to help this particular venture function and be a success.
And hi, my name is Tanya Till. My area of focus is health. I'm sorry, you guys, I'm a health equity specialist. My area of focus is health, and I assist with housing. I'm just here to pretty much learn. I don't know a whole lot about the transportation sector, so I am looking to learn, especially with on my committee transportation and health kind of intersects. So that's very important. So I can go back and kind of, educate those on my committee as well as far as transportation goes. So thank you.
Hope or Zoe, would you all like to introduce yourselves?
Sure, I can go next. My name is Zoe Wilkerson. I am the Area Director at Refugee Services of Texas, and I am hoping that I can contribute to this by bringing in the perspectives of our clients who are constantly using the bus routes, but needing more support in order to access them due to language barriers or different understandings of how to use public transportation.
And my name is Hope Goldman. I work alongside Zoe with Refugee Services of Texas. Previously, I was the community engagement coordinator for the Fort Worth office, so working directly with clients, working with setting up their homes and that sort of thing. And I've recently transitioned to development, so now I do fundraising and whatnot, but I was invited along with Zoe to share my perspective.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. And I know a couple of you kind of trickled in as I was going through my introduction. And I know some of you might be looking for Nikos, but he did transition into a new role. So, again, I'm Tanisha. I provide backup here for the Transportation Committee. And moving forward, you all will be working with Barbara Young and myself still as a backup. Okay. Alrighty. Okay. So, again, thanks everybody for sharing. And so today's agenda will consist of welcoming introductions, which we just did. And then to get us started, we'll go over some transportation equity. I'll go over a little bit of data to get everyone's brain turning. Then we'll discuss the equity indicators and measures that we'd like to see for transportation throughout Tarrant County. Next, we will discuss some recommendations for our goals and strategies to implement for our equity plan. And finally, we'll have a discussion and wrap things up for today. So, are there any questions or anything before we dive in? Okay, I don't see any hands, so I'll keep on moving. Okay, so what is transportation equity? Transportation equity looks like accessible, affordable, and available transportation for everyone in the community, resulting in fair distribution of transportation resources, benefits, costs, program, and services based upon differences in income, ability, and other factors affecting transportation choice and impact. So as we move through this presentation, I'd like for everyone to be thinking about the ways that we can make the various transportation services throughout Tarrant County more accessible, affordable, and available. So our goal as a transportation committee is to provide equitable transportation solutions that will offer safe and accessible commutes for the elderly, disabled, and handicapped, increase bus frequency for service workers who commute much earlier or later than the 9 to 5 group, equip low income neighborhoods with safe and frequent access to transportation, allow students to go from and to school, including college kids, well, college students, connect neighborhoods of color with access to nutritional foods, jobs, healthcare, and parks and recreation. So, just looking at these simple facts about public transportation in the United States, how do you think these stats relate to what we have witnessed and experienced locally here in Tarrant County? It's our first discussion question. What do you all think based off of, what you see on a day-to-day basis, or maybe even your own experience with public transportation? How do you feel like these numbers or these statistics, relate to what we see here?
I guess I can go. My husband and I live in the 76104 zip code, which is near Southside and kind of downtown. So there's a lot of public transportation readily available nearby us, but it doesn't often extend as heavily and as easily accessible outside of that downtown space. So whenever we go out to go shopping and we have to go clear across town to like Southwest Fort Worth, it's really difficult, if not impossible, to get over there in a timely manner. So I think just for me, like where I live, there's a lot of it, but where I go, it doesn't necessarily connect there. So it doesn't surprise me that 45% of people have little to no access to public transportation.
Absolutely, Kylie, and thank you for sharing. And that last mark is something that also stands out to me. Some of you may know, but some of you may not. But I'm not from Fort Worth. I actually live in Dallas. I was born and raised in Dallas. So coming from Dallas to Fort Worth, I can just see how the transportation or the access of transportation really varies over here. I mean, it's a much larger gap. So, I mean, when I look at the difference between Dallas County Transit and Tarrant County Transit, I can see how so many people don't have access here in Tarrant County because there's not as much, well, you all don't offer as much here. So that's just my own take. Does anyone else have any thoughts on these numbers, these stats, before we move on? That's absolutely okay. Again, just as a reminder, you all will get this presentation with these slides. So if you want to revisit these numbers, you definitely can at any time. Okay, so moving on. According to the Housing and Transportation Index, traditional measures of housing affordability ignore transportation costs. Typically, a household's second largest expenditure, transportation costs, are largely a function of the characteristics of the neighborhood in which a household chooses to live. So essentially, location matters. Compact and dynamic neighborhoods with walkable streets and high access to jobs, transit, and a wide variety of businesses are more efficient, affordable, and sustainable for everybody. However, as you can see, Tarrant County has zero neighborhoods that meet these standards. The index also informs us that 2% of workers access public transportation in Tarrant County compared to our neighbors in Dallas County, where 7% of residents access public transportation for work alone. With Tarrant County's Trinity Metro, we have over 40 bus lines with over 2,000 bus stops, two commuter rail lines. They offer a van and carpool service. Trinity Metro Access, Trinity Metro Access Paratransit service, which has formerly been known as MITS. And this this is pretty cool because it's, trained drivers to assist passengers in boarding and alighting vehicles. Further, Trinity Metro offers Zip Zone where people can utilize their ride sharing application within specific zones. And all in all, there are between 18,000 and 21,000 daily rides that utilize Trinity Metro services. So we definitely do have the services, and there's a lot of people using them, but we definitely want to see how we can make things more equitable for Tarrant County. Okay, so now we'll get into equity indicators. So these service indicators can be used as an example of the spreadsheet I'll show to you all in a second. When considering how this committee can best contribute to the equity plan, we first need to think about the data that we should be capturing. Once we can measure transportation equity, we can also track whether our changes to policies and procedures are making an impact, an important piece of accountability. Okay, so give me just 1 second. I'm going to share some equity indicators that we've come up with based off of research. Okay, can everyone see these indicators? Okay, so just based off of research alone, not speaking with any experts or not speaking with anyone in the community, we've come up with accessibility, availability, and safety. And then in the columns below those are the ways that we plan to measure accessibility, availability, and safety. So right now, even though we will definitely get into this in the discussion portion, I would definitely like for people to take a little bit of time. Okay, yes. And if the font does seem small, please hover over the screen and you can zoom in and zoom out. Okay, but we will get to this in the discussion, but I would like for everyone to take a little bit of time and think about some other equity indicators and ways that we can measure. And then we'll get to that question in the discussion, but I did kind of want to show you all what we've come up with here. Are there any thoughts or anything before we move on? Any questions? Okay, that's okay.
Tanisha, something that was brought up in our housing committee meeting last time was having um, mixed income, like multifamily housing options, like apartments, but mixed income apartments near job and transportation hubs. I don't know where that falls or if it even falls under you guys or under me, but I figure it doesn't hurt to have them on both lists of equity indicators.
No, absolutely, absolutely, and we'll definitely get that added in. I'm not sure where. I mean, it might fall under accessibility,
Yeah, I
maybe
feel like
even.
accessibility makes sense because then
Okay,
it'll be like the affordable housing near the public transportation hubs.
okay, we'll add that in. Does anyone else have any thoughts before we move on?
Something I think about a lot when it comes to accessibility is not just is this service available, but do people know that it exists or how to use it, and that aspect of accessibility. And because the zip zone may cover an entire neighborhood, but do people even know that the zip zone service exists? Are they aware of how to use it? Do they have the app, the phone to even download the app to be able to use it? So education and just the accessibility, the logistical accessibility of actually using the service.
Okay, I'm taking notes. Okay, and that's okay because, like I said, we will definitely get back into equity indicators and measures a little bit more in the discussion. But thank you so much, Rachel, for sharing, and Kylie. Okay. All right. Okay. So, in order for us to best enforce change in our communities and organizations, we have to ensure that our policies align with our goals. So, what is good policy? According to the Pepperdine School of Public Policy, good public policy seeks to define the issues and implement strategies that will produce a measurable and positive result for the general public. Effective public policy will support democratic institutions and processes, serve justice, encourage empathetic and active citizenship, and solve problems efficiently and effectively without causing a political rift. Thus, successful policy is both the execution of a good policy and good politics. So, a major part of what we plan to do is to utilize a policy framework that will be shared with everyone once we have finalized that process. In order to review the policies that affect our organizations and communities to ensure that they are more equitable. So, on your screen, you can see the Victoria Transit Policy Institute policy framework. And this is just an example of the kind of framework we want to utilize to review our policies. Further, the Victoria Transport Policy utilizes the following objectives to build equitable transportation. First, a fair share of resources. It implies that people should get what they pay for and pay for what they get, unless subsidies are specifically justified. Two, external costs, costs that travel activities impose on other people, such as the delay of risk and pollution. Fairness requires minimizing or compensating for such impacts. Three, inclusivity. Vertical equity with regard to need and ability. This considers how transportation systems serve people with disabilities, youth and seniors, and other special mobility needs. This justifies multimodal planning and universal design requirements. And number four, affordability, vertical equity with regard to income. This considers how transportation systems affect lower income people. Policies that favor lower income people are called progressive, and those that favor higher income people are called regressive. This justifies policies that improve affordable models and subsidies low income travelers. And number five, social justice. This considers how transportation system serves disadvantaged and underserved groups and address structural injustices such as racism and sexism. So again, this is just an example of the kind of policy framework we'd like to utilize as we move forward. But if you have any questions or concerns about our policy review framework, please reach out to Dr. Wingate. She has been building one for us, and once it's ready, we'll definitely send it out to everyone. And then also, as a reminder, for any organizations that are interested, we as health equity specialists are available to assist in your internal policy review. So please don't hesitate to inquire about how we might be able to help you all through the policy review process. Okay, so next we'll get into recommendation, goals, and strategies. So as we prepare to build our plan to create equitable changes in Tarrant County, we don't have to completely reinvent the wheel. There are other cities and counties that have already put similar plans in place over the last couple of years, and thus we will look to some of them for inspiration as we continue to create our own plan. Here we have Seattle, Washington's King County Equity and Social Justice Strategic Plan. In King County, they have expanded their transportation system and infrastructure to meet the transportation needs of many in the community. Although the system connects many people to opportunity, gets them to places they need to go, and links together our growing cities, mobility is one of the top concerns of King County residents. King County recognizes that transportation is a key factor in accessing education, jobs, and services that allow our residents to fulfill their potential and their ability. I'm sorry. To fulfill their potential and the region's prosperity is dependent upon the ability of workers and freight to move throughout the region. In order to combat transportation inequities, King County has proposed a three-part plan. First, ensure that we get the most services out of every dollar and that the system responds to the transportation needs of the community by increasing the frequent services to connect disadvantaged communities to major transit hubs and improve park and ride services. Second, they plan to build an intentional equity focus into the delivery of transportation services. This looks like networking with smaller employers and schools to expand discounted services to low income residents, partnering with local jurisdictions to plan for better shared road experiences, and to create a fully accessible multimodal ferry terminal. And third, they plan to develop alternative services to respond to the specific needs of those who live in the communities that do not support traditional services. So, specifically, those people in like rural communities. So, they plan to do this by implementing and expanding the Capital Access Transportation Program to create mobility options for seniors and disabled citizens, as well as van share programs through partnerships with senior citizen centers and nonprofit and advocacy groups. So now that we've seen an example of goals and strategies, a homework assignment for everyone would be for everyone to think about and write out some recommendation short, medium, and long-term goal strategies for equitable transportation in Tarrant County. And then this will be something that we discuss a little bit further in our next transportation committee meeting. Does anyone have any questions about this plan example? Okay, that's okay. Okay, so since there aren't any other questions, we'll go ahead and move into our discussion portion to get some feedback and insight, giving you all's expertise. And so this portion will be facilitated by Barbara. So Barbara, please take it away.
Do you have the questions for me to ask? Again, my name is Barbara Young. I am the Health Equity Specialist for internal Tarrant County Public Health policies and also for transportation. Again, thank everyone for coming today, and we hope you will come back and join us for further and future meetings. First question I'd like to ask, are there any additional equity indicators or measures that you would like to add to the indicators spreadsheet that Tanisha showed a few moments ago?
Coming from a communication aspect, I just feel like language barriers should always be whether it's an indicator or a measurement. I feel like language barriers should be something that should be included in the indicators and measurement. I know Nikos and I, earlier in the year, maybe around March or so, we went out and we rode on various buses, I mean Trinity Metro buses, and I feel like that was something that we didn't see a lot of like publication in different languages, like the information, even some of the bus operators, we would see some individuals get on the bus and they might not speak English and they have to rely on another passenger to get certain information because it wasn't available to them in their language. So I would definitely include language barriers in there.
Yeah, I think maybe if you added another equity indicator just about inclusivity, that would fall in really well there. And I think the bus stops near me are like really short in depth, and they're also uncovered. So something else to add.
Okay. Anybody else have any comments?
Yeah, I would say if there's a way to where we end up finding most of our clients choosing not to use public transportation is just when they have to change buses 2 or 3 times to get where they need to go. So if there's a way to lessen the amount of changes that need to be made when someone's traveling all the way across Fort Worth, um, and see what our options are there.
Okay. Anyone else have any ideas or expressions that they want to tell me about?
I just want to call out Kate's comment in the chat and make sure we saw that the equitable exposure to environmental burdens of the transportation system.
Okay. All right. Okay, then I guess we'll go to the next question. Are you aware of any inequitable policies within your organization that could benefit from the assistance of the Tarrant County Unity Council? Anybody?
Or just to kind of build on to that question, um, if any of you have any equity policies already in place with your organizations, we would love to hear a little bit about that and see what all has been working for you all, or maybe what hasn't been working. Um, that way we can see how we can collaborate and maybe utilize some of the tactics that you all have utilized.
I mean, in regards to language equity, uh, Refugee Services of Texas can assist with providing interpreters for translation of documents if that's something that obviously this would be sort of like at the end of the journey, but we generally make sure that all of our client languages are represented in our interpretation networks, so we have those resources available to provide support.
Okay. Would anyone else like to chair? Okay, no problem. We'll go ahead and go to the next question.
Before we go on to the next question, I did want to point out Kate in the chat. She said, while we have equity policy from a decision making perspective, decisions are based on funding from the federal government, and much of this funding is earmarked for roads. Okay, so at least y'all have one. I mean, we would definitely love to look a little bit further into it, even though, funding definitely does matter, but we still want to take a look at that to see, what might be beneficial to us. But thank you, Kate, for sharing that.
Mhm. Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to the next question.
How would you prefer to see the community engaged in other subcommittee work? Sorry.
I think now's a good opportunity to share that we'll be hosting some community listening sessions across Tarrant County starting next month. It'll be towards the middle end of the month and last through July. We'll be picking out several different locations for north, south, east, west, and central Tarrant County, where we'll invite community members to come out and share their thoughts and experiences with all of our sector areas. There's 7, so transportation, health, housing, communication, education, economic development, and criminal justice and policing. So we're going to start our actual community engagement process next month. So if you know of any place to host those, please let us know, because we're actively looking for ways to engage the community by meeting them where they are.
Okay. Thank you, Kylie, for that information for everyone. Anybody else have any comments?
Hope, I saw you asked how big of a space would we need. That's a really good question. Since we haven't done one yet, I'm not quite sure how many people will attend. I think up to 50 would be ideal, but truly we're not sure. we're also trying to host several of these within these 5 different sections of Tarrant County. So even if we had 20 or 30 people one day, we could, meet in the same spot again at another time of day.
Okay. Yeah, I was thinking, I'm personally fairly connected with TCU. And so I was wondering if maybe there might be a room on the giant TCU campus where you could hold one or something like that. Um, as far as getting the community engaged, something that I think would be really important is just generally more advocacy for the problem in general. Because if you're not involved, if you're not actively like faced with the problem on a day-to-day basis, you may not even know that it's a problem. And so I would say making sure that the community knows about how just because I have a car doesn't mean that my neighbor, 2 apartments down from me has a way to get to work every day, lest it's a 2-hour bus ride. And I think that if we could get awareness up, um, I mean, I think that's just a good starting point for anything that you want to do, is to get more people involved in caring about what solutions could be there.
Okay. Absolutely, I agree with that. We'll definitely try our best to do that. Any other
Um,
comments?
I was just gonna say, I remember when Tanisha and Nikos actually rode the buses, and they talked to the people that were using those forms of transportations and kind of just getting their feedback. To me, something like that is important because it's showing that people are actively trying to make a difference and trying to they listening. We're here, we're trying to figure out what can make things better for the riders. And so when they see people and they hear people asking questions, you can really get a person's full experience and what their struggles or what they like, what they don't like. I know that one of the issues was that if you are a larger person, the bus stop, the little benches were too small.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the issue. I know the buses were clean, Tanisha, right? I think y'all said they were clean, but the people didn't have a whole lot of negative to say, which was great. But there were some concerns. So I just think that more people, more staff, if we're trying to make organizations, if we're trying to make a change and make a difference, we ourselves need to go out and see what people are experiencing so we can have a better idea as to what they're lacking.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that statement, Tanya. Thank you for that.
Welcome.
To kind of
Anyone
build
else?
that
Go ahead.
point, hopefully, with the listening sessions, those are going to be directly marketed to people that are actually riding the buses. A lot of times, and I know I've made this mistake before too, when we're asking people to give us feedback on public transportation, we're using like traditional like marketing methods, but no one's actually going to the buses and saying, come to our listening session or come fill out our survey or whatever. So just directly going to the source and meeting the people, where they're at, instead of asking them to just find the information in, a sea of all this other information that's out there.
Thank you so much for that idea. Thank you.
Right, right, Miss Rachel. I just wanted to back you. I know you was kind of backing me, but uh, yes, I would have to agree with you because even though we're going to have these listening sessions, we don't know for sure that people are actually going to want to come out. We don't know if they're going to want to be around other people. We don't know people life situations, their schedules, and so on. So just
Mhm.
randomly jumping on the bus and seeing people there riding and having a conversation, I think is a good idea. So I also agree with you on that point as well.
Mhm. Definitely, definitely. Anyone else? Okay. In our subcommittee meetings, are you interested in hearing from subject matter experts? Is there any additional data or information you'd like to see from us? Anyone? Okay. I guess not. So we'll move on.
Okay. I feel like this question is a great place to plug in that this is you all's plan. We're here to facilitate the plan. So if there's anything that maybe we didn't present or maybe you think about it later, because I know sometimes it is hard to think of certain answers right on the spot. But if there's anything that you feel like you didn't see or you would like to see, please let us know. Also, if there's anyone that you feel like can contribute to the conversation here or to the work that we're doing here, or maybe anyone that can benefit from the work that we're doing here, please send them our information. We'd love to have them here in our committee meetings. We want everyone's input and expertise. Because as you all can see, we did have Nico's transition out of this position. Therefore, I'm not necessarily an expert on transportation, so we definitely do need the information from you all so that we can ensure that we are doing the correct research and providing you all with the correct resources. So if you do think of anything, please do not hesitate to reach out to us.
I would like to say that, I mean, if the discussion is to take care of Tarrant County, someone from Trinity Metro needs to be on the board. They are making all the decisions. I mean, I'm a support of theirs. I'm not making new programs on my own necessarily, but I can. But what is their plan? What is their vision? How do they see what they can do to improve things? I mean, they've done the zip zones and they have access. What we do is pretty much access just in the other areas. But that person is going to be the subject matter expert on everything. Because they're doing things in the community. They're going to put the routes in spots where they're going to hopefully get some volume. And then what do you do with low volume areas? It's just all
Right.
those things you need to figure out to make sense for people, or like they had said before, making a spot where there's a drop off or a specific pickup next to the apartments. Those are the people that are going to
Mhm.
make the ultimate decisions. And then you can talk to the people moving into those places to make sure that's the key part of why they're in there. But I would think someone from Trinity Metro would be a great asset in terms of discussion.
Absolutely, Matt, and you're 120% correct. I do know that there was someone from Trinity Metro on the initial invite. Now, I know
Mm.
sometimes everyone's schedule doesn't align, but I do know that there was at least one person. We will definitely have to do a little bit more research. Just like I say, just because Nikos has transitioned out of this position to see how we can get more people in here. But we definitely will continue to reach out to various organizations, Trinity Metro included, to see how we can get more people and more input. So definitely thank you. Alrighty. Well, that's it on the discussions. And anybody else have any other thoughts for any of these questions before we move on? Okay, that's okay. So these are just some sources that we utilize to come up with our statistics and some of the data that we showed to you all today. Um, and just as a reminder, these slides will be sent to you. So that way, if you all would like to look a little bit further into these sources, they'll be available to you. Last time asking any questions or concerns before we prepare to wrap things up today.
Do you have the map of how you've got the areas broken down? Is it for the city of Fort Worth and then the Northeast, and then how do you have the 5 areas broken down?
Ooh, I don't have the map. Do we have the map, Kylie?
We don't have like a true map where we've identified the exact zip codes, but we're breaking out Tarrant County into 5 sections. So it'll just be north, south, east, west, and central. That's
Mm.
part of our work over the next week and a half, is to determine which zip codes specifically we're going to target. And the zip codes that we're going to target are the ones that have the highest social vulnerability indexes. Um, Low income, what else am I missing? High COVID rates and low vaccination rates.
Okay.
Am I missing anything? I think that
Okay.
I think
Yeah,
that
I'd just
about
be curious
covers
to
it.
see them when you get it done, because I know
Absolutely,
what
we'll be
areas
sure
I
to send
serve
it.
and what options are available in those areas.
Yeah, and if you guys have any recommendations or there are certain zip codes that automatically stand out to you, please send them our way and we'll figure out a way to, well, we'll for sure include them, but then we'll try and figure out other areas in the surrounding zip codes that we can schedule some of these listening sessions as well.
Thank you, Matt, for that question. That was actually a really good question. Any other questions or concerns, ideas? That's okay. So honestly, we have truly enjoyed you all this afternoon. Thank you so much for spending time with us and sharing your expertise with us at the top of the week. As I mentioned earlier, we will send out a follow-up email that will include all of these slides, a link for the King County Equity Plan, as well as a reminder for your homework. Which again is to think of and write out some short, medium, and long term goals and strategies to affect equitable change for transportation in Tarrant County. And we'll also be working on this assignment with you. So at any time, please don't hesitate to reach out to Barbara or myself with any questions, concerns, or ideas. Thank you again, everybody. Please enjoy the rest of your day and have a great week.